Why are plain guys, gender neutral, such little weirdos? That probably needs to be a running question on this podcast. We've covered Thaddeus Lowe, weirdo. Pancho Barnes, weirdo. Howard Hughes has been mentioned a whole bunch of times, weirdo. We're going to cover Jack Parsons next week. He's more of a rocket guy, but still air travel is involved. Weirdo. And now we're going to cover George Van Tassel, who left a successful aerospace career to move with his wife and 3 daughters literally into the desert under a rock to communicate with aliens. He held UFO conventions and devoted his life to building a time machine. And we're going to tell his story with Andrea from Long Beach and Bel from Texas. Yay! By the way, this is Haunted Hollywood Hour, the podcast where we cover strange stories from Southern California history. And I'm Carly Heath. It's going to be quirky as hell on this episode, so I hope you're prepared. But before we get into it, Andrea and Bel, what's the spookiest thing that's happened to you recently? Andrea, you go first.
So I've been having a lot of really weird dreams this week. I don't know what they mean, if anything, but they've been very vivid, very nonsensical. They don't follow any kind of linear logic. But I'm really stressed in all of them. I'm searching for something. I'm trying to solve something. I'm trapped somewhere. So something's coming for me. I don't know what, but it's on its way. So
that's really cool. I think it's because, leading up this past 2 weeks has been the lead up to the full moon in Scorpio, which you're Scorpio rising. So the full moon is going to be in your first house, kind of bringing some awareness and shedding some light on who you are, who your identity is, how you operate in the world. So I think maybe these dreams are like how you kind of have to defragment your computer. I don't know. Is that a word? Do we do that anymore? I don't know. But you have to update your software.
For all the older people. Do you remember defragmenting your computer? Yeah.
I don't think we do that anymore. I think these dreams are like updating your software.
Okay. I'm hoping. That sounds positive.
I think the full moon is like today or tomorrow, right? Yeah. Well, I think you should be having some awareness, some awakening. Like, what have you learned about yourself? Like this past month, what have you completed something? Have you?
Okay. These are things for me to think about. I'll report back. I'll let you know.
Okay.
It's like
and Bel, what's a spooky thing that's happened for you?
Well, let me start with the fact that I love animals. I love all animals. I respect all animals. I'm a huge animal lover. I will gladly put the life of a random animal over the lives of most people I know.
As one should.
And today, a few days ago, I'm walking with my pups around the street when all of a sudden a bird flies, close enough to me to hit me. And I thought, oh, silly bird. I wonder why it didn't see me there. And I'm walking slowly, of course, because I'm letting the pups sniff and smell and do their thing. And then that bird comes back the other way and also hits me. And I go, bird, what is going on? So I finally get through it, but he hits me about 3 more times. And I'm beginning to think, something is going on. Well, we walk, then we do make a U-turn to come back towards the house. And on the way back, there comes the bird again. So now it's personal. This bird is attacking me every time I go by with my pups. And it happens every time I go taking them on a walk. So yesterday I finally just took a different route because I didn't want to keep getting attacked by this bird, whom either I've done something to or he's concerned about some babies and my plethora of dogs that I'm looking for at the moment.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it's the dogs. I don't think the bird has anything against you. I think that the bird probably has a fledgling baby or 2 that's just learning to fly and is probably on the ground somewhere. And the birds are like, dogs, you need to get out of here because my babies are learning to fly.
Yes. And it's smart enough to be like, it's not the dogs. They're attached to this person. So I'm going to get this person to get away from here. But it did freak the hell out of me. I could see all of a sudden why things like birds, like the movie, is scary because just having those wings all up in your face, I was like, ah!
I have been seeing birds attack squirrels lately. So I think they're very protective of their babies. Yeah. And not terribly spooky, but the story of the potential serial killer kind of got resolved. One, the police have been saying, no, the rumors are not true. It's not a serial killer. We know this for certain. Basically, what happened was a man was randomly killed in his apartment, a luxury high-rise apartment. Someone was caught on a ring cam, like going to different doors. And it turns out he actually had a screwdriver, and he was trying to use the screwdriver to open people's doors. Someone in the apartment complex on the night that this person was killed did call the cops saying, like, I'm hearing a scuffling, I'm hearing shouts, something is going on. The cops, being always so effective and helpful, showed up at that man's door and knocked, got no answer, and then they left. Great job, guys. 3 days later, the guy's friend said, we haven't heard from our guy, and the cops went to do a welfare check and found that the man had been dead for 3 days. The suspect in the murder is a man named Eric Escamilla, who's 27, and he was arrested when the FBI and the LAPD found him at a local hospital. And he had apparently gone to the roof of the apartment building and entered via a skylight to enter the apartment next door to the man that he killed, and then somehow got into the man that he was after's apartment and killed him by stabbing him with a screwdriver.
And why was he after him? Do we know?
We don't know. Yeah, we don't know the full story.
Fascinating.
Yeah, but that's what happened. I'm sure we'll learn more.
Well, you live in a vibrant part of LA, so
and yay, police officers! Great job there, as
always so helpful.
Always. Every single time I've called the cops to get some help with something, it's been a complete waste of time.
Yep.
Now let's get into George Van Tassel, this fun, quirky fellow who is going to eventually move into the desert to talk to UFOs. He's born March 12th, 1910 in Jefferson, Ohio. So he's a Pisces.
Oh, well, that's the first problem. A Pisces man is just a mistake. So that's the start.
You heard that at first, Pisces men. Your mistakes.
You're a mistake. No man should be born in Pisces season.
We must say that our favorite comedian is a Pisces.
Yeah, he's the only exception. He's the only one that's allowed. And there's just one. So everybody else, I'm sorry. He took the one spot.
And I'm picturing for this guy, because when you hear him talk, I have some video of him talking. He's very, what's the word? Authoritative when he speaks. Almost serious and presidential, and he has that white man deep voice where you're like, oh yeah, he makes sense. It sounds good. So I'm picturing like a George Clooney or a Colin Firth, someone who can speak with authority, and you go, okay, yeah, okay, oh sure, yeah.
Gerard
Butler, yeah, there you go. So George Van Tassel, he has 3 brothers, and his father died when he was a child. And when his mother remarried, George got a half-brother and half-sister. So big family, lots of siblings. George's stepfather was an insurance man, and this whole family, they were pretty well off in the 1920s. George grows up loving to read and is regarded as very smart. As a child, he makes a roller coaster using the top of a barn and a bobsled. So his parents let him do the crazy things.
What do you mean a roller coaster? Like he would bring his friends over, like, hey, get on the sled on my roof?
You know, I can imagine, like, you have a barn and maybe some wood around, and you build like a little track, and you put your bobsled on it, and you go down the track.
It was the 1920s.
Roller coaster.
There was no television. Yeah. You were going to lose your kids to some disease or another. Might as well be flying off the roof of your barn or catching tetanus or something. Like, you know,
just having
all at the same time. Tetanus as you fly off.
Right, exactly.
Broken limbs, I'm sure. Yeah. Head injuries. Great time. He's fascinated with airplanes, a lot like Pancho Barnes. This is a similar time period. And he gets a pilot's license as a teenager. And he drops out of school after the 10th grade and takes a job at the Cleveland Municipal Airport.
So here's the thing. I made a face, but I also had an acquaintance that got a pilot license as a teenager, and he sucks. I still hate him. So again, I'm not having a lot of good feelings right now about this guy.
Wow. So he got a pilot's license as a teenager, and this was, I'm assuming, in the present day, modern times.
This is someone my age, very wealthy parents.
There you go.
Yeah, and if somebody's described as being well off in the 1920s, that means they were rich, very rich, because 1920s,
that's also
everybody was poor. Everybody was starving.
Really not. I mean, this was the Roaring 20s.
Fair
so
enough.
this is 1929 was when the Depression hit.
Fair enough.
So the Roaring 20s is kind of a booming time for the stock market and everything. But what's just particularly interesting from all these stories is that if you are a white boy from like a relatively well-off family, you could literally do whatever you wanted, including drop out of school, get a pilot's license, go work at the airport, and go into business with less than a high school education and become a very successful like aeronautical engineer. Wild.
Yeah, we were all born A, at the wrong time, B, not as men, and that was
our mistake. Yes. Yes.
In 1930, George leaves Ohio for California. He's 20. His uncle, who lives in California, gives him a job at a garage in Santa Monica. While George is working at this garage, he meets a man named Frank Critzer, who wants to go to the desert and be a prospector. A year later, Frank invites George to this spot in the desert where he's been mining. He actually sends George a drawing of a map showing him how to get to where he lives. He's out in the middle of the desert. It's like, here's a map on how to get there, which I think is funny. Frank, it turns out, is living under giant rock, which is exactly how it's described. Frank says it's the world's largest boulder and a place considered sacred by the Native Americans. It's about 7 stories high and covers 5,800 feet of ground. And inspired by desert tortoises that dig holes to live in the desert, Frank had dug a 400 square foot space, which is the size of my apartment, under the giant rock, and lived there. He had a rainwater collection system and a tunnel for ventilation, and he built an airstrip nearby, which averages 1 plane per day.
So what you're saying is Frank was the inventor of tiny house.
Could be, yeah, the tiny house movement, tiny house under a rock.
Yeah, because you know, a lot of the tiny houses are like, oh, I live like this so I can be off grid and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Well, Frank did it first under a rock, so
yeah. But like, I love a person who has a dream. And it's just like, I'm going to do this. We are still talking about him today because he lived under a rock. Whereas, you know, the normies who get a house and a car and a wife and a kids, and we're not talking about them.
Yeah.
So, and just be your weird.
I just want to be on the conversation when he doesn't know what something is in conversation, and somebody goes, well, do you live under a rock or something? And he goes, yes, I do, as a matter of fact. Thank you. How did you know?
I like to say when I don't understand something, please be patient with me. I'm from the 1900s.
That's good.
So George and Frank have a great day, I'm assuming, in the desert, checking out George's house under the rock. Throughout the 30s and 40s, George goes back to Los Angeles, works as an aircraft mechanic and a flight inspector. In interviews, he claims he was a test pilot as well. He works for Douglas Aircraft, Lockheed's Skunk Works in Burbank, and Hughes Aircraft, where he becomes a top flight inspector. Meanwhile, Frank is out in the desert, living under his rock, mining, prospecting. George, hanging out with Howard Hughes, says that one day with Howard Hughes meant more to him than months spent with other men. 2 weirdos, best friends.
Yeah. You know, my grandpa worked at Howard Hughes.
Really?
Back in the 90s. Yes.
I didn't know that. So in the 90s, by this time, Howard Hughes was dead.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, maybe it was the 80s. How old was I? Who can say? The point is, he did work there.
Any interesting memories that he recalled?
No, but we always got a lot of really good like gear. I had a lot of really good like bags and shirts from that time period. So
let's say like Hughes.
There was some like partnership with the World Cup. We got a bunch of really good World Cup stuff.
Ooh.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Oh, Howard Hughes, what a strange man you are.
Yeah, with your long ass nails. We'll have to do a Howard Hughes episode.
Yeah.
So during World War II, Frank, the guy under the rock. So George, aircraft guy, Frank, guy under the rock. Frank has a German last name and comes under suspicion for being a German spy. U.S. Customs officials investigate him in 1938, finding hangars camouflaged by giant canvas. Hangars, I'm assuming, meaning little barns where airplanes are stored? Yeah.
Correct.
They also find a shortwave radio antenna and a receiver, but never anything illegal. According to some sources, Frank was born in Waynesboro, Virginia, not a German, just a U.S. citizen with a German last name. But okay, George wrote this essay in the 1970s about Frank and about the rock. And in George's essay, he says Frank had served in the German Navy as a mess boy on a German submarine in World War I. But he had come to our country, worked in our merchant marine, and was a naturalized citizen. So conflicting information here. I'm assuming George was probably pals with Frank, and Frank probably told him the truth. Why would he tell that? If he was an American citizen, why would he tell a lie about being a German citizen?
Or did George make that up for clickbait?
Maybe, a lot of the things that George says, some of them, I'm like, I don't know if you're telling the truth or you're living in Pisces land version of reality.
Just to remember, again, a time before the internet and Google, where you could basically say anything about yourself, anything about your past, anything about, and who was going to dispute it? Who was going to go, let me just Google you. Let me find your social media in a minute here.
Yeah.
And I'll read this. So you could just, I was in the war. Not even in German. I was on the German side. It could be either.
Yes.
Somebody's lying.
Yeah. And in 1940, Popular Science does a feature on Frank's unusual home. And I put a link in the chat do the links in the chat not work? Because I'm clicking on it and it's not working. But I wonder if I can share my screen. But it's really cute. If you get a chance to look at it, it shows the inside of Frank's under the rock house. And it's all carved. You can see the top of the boulder, as the ceiling of the house. It's it's got Hobbit vibes a little bit. It describes the dwelling as such. The underground dwelling featured hand-hewn stone stairs leading to a ventilated living room, kitchen area, and bedroom. A bank window positioned under the boulder's overhang passively lit the chamber during the daytime, and a water catchment system collected occasional desert rainfall off the rock's face. The interior of the subterranean home remained a temperate 55 to 80 degrees Fahrenheit year-round. During his time at the Rock, he is very focused on being helpful to his community. He grades 33 miles of dirt roads around Landers, California, which is this town near the Rock, and the locals there call him Straight Road Frank. Frank also claimed to be so full of electricity that he could charge flashlight batteries by putting them under his pillow when he slept.
So and it tells the truth is what you're saying. So we know for sure whatever came out of his mouth was absolutely correct. Yes.
I would like to see that, Frank. But, so he's a little kooky, but people like him.
Yeah, he seems a nice.
You'd put up with a lot if the person that lived out in the middle of nowhere started fixing your roads. You'd be like, yeah, he's fine.
Yeah, he fixed
my batteries, I swear.
On July either 24th or 25th, 1942, 3 sheriff's deputies arrive to question Frank. What happens next is up for debate. According to the LA Times, Frank barricades himself inside his home, and the deputies throw tear gas canisters inside and accidentally ignite Frank's explosives, which kill him. Other accounts say Frank kills himself by detonating dynamite during the police siege.
Which sounds more likely, the police fucked up or that he killed himself?
There's a third story. I mean, yeah, I'm thinking the police fucked up, but the Times has a quote of him saying, and it's like, okay, who gave the Times this quote? The police did, right? The Times has a quote of him saying, "You're not taking me out of here alive. I'm going, but another way, and you're going with me."
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah,
definitely
that sounds. They should have gotten a better script writer for that one.
Yeah. This is the police with their version of things. But according to George's essay, George Van Tassel's essay, A Brief History of Giant Rock, which was written in the late 70s, a kind of reminiscing of everything that happened at the Rock. George says when the 3 deputies came to take Frank in, the first thing he noticed was that they were from Riverside County, Giant Rock being in San Bernardino County, and Frank being a man of principle. He knew that they had no authority in this county, and he told them so. According to Bill Royal, who had brought the deputies out there, as they didn't even know where Giant Rock was, Frank, after a lot of arguing, said that they were going to take him in anyway, that he needed to get his coat. When he went into his living quarters beneath Giant Rock to get his coat, he pulled the 2x4 out, which he had across the door on the inside to hold it in place, and thus barricaded the door. The deputies immediately assumed Frank was defying them, so they lobbed the tear gas grenade in through the north side window. The unfortunate part of this whole incident was that the grenade landed underneath that table, thus setting off the caps and dynamite. The explosion killed Frank, blew out the windows, and injured the deputies. Newspapers ran the story that he was a German spy. I had personally talked to the FBI, and they knew the newspaper stories were not true. There's so
much happening here. I just have to say, if he was a German spy, why would he live under a rock in the middle of the California desert? What sort of spy, A, is in a very conspicuous home, and B, lives in isolation? You're not spying very well if you're by yourself.
So the whole like radio antenna thing that he has, like maybe it's to pick up plane traffic. I don't know what radios were capable of back then. I don't know. Intercept radio.
And they didn't know either.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I have a lot of questions. If someone's listening and they know more about radios and spies and
how one might live under an extremely conspicuous home but somehow also be spying through the radio, please tell me.
Right.
But this definitely has that very flavor of he was resisting arrest. Okay, but what was he being arrested for? Well, because he was resisting. Well, but if you were arresting him, it must have been for a reason. So what was the resisting? Oh, it doesn't matter. He was resisting, so we had to arrest him kind of thing. The usual cop, like, we'll do whatever the hell we want to do. And oops, we killed somebody. Yeah. Oh, no, he did it himself.
Which, I mean, is a good point to bring up. There's a lot of people who have been arrested and deported. And they ask the cops, the ICE, do you have a warrant? And right now, the cops and the ICE are like, we don't need a warrant. We live in scary times right now.
Yeah.
Anyway, sidebar. So Frank is dead. George comes to live at the Rock. And basically 3 years after the incident where Frank dies, George actually, that's when he finds out that Frank died. And I'm not sure how it works, but in 1945, George requests a homestead on the property that Frank used to live at and leases it from the Bureau of Land Management, and he opens an airfield there. And in 1947, George officially leaves the aerospace industry and brings his wife and 3 daughters, who are 8 years old, 13 years old, and 15 years old, to live in the desert in the room under the rock where his friend Frank died.
Yeah.
It's also 400 square feet, which is the size of my apartment, my 1-bedroom apartment, which is very tiny. People who come to my apartment are like, your apartment is very, very tiny. I am just one person living here. I can't imagine having 4 people living in here.
5.
5. I can't math. Yeah, 5.
I did the same thing. I was like 4, and I was like, wait, is there 3 kids? That's not how math works. Also, one of them is a teenage girl. She doesn't want to live under a rock. She's going to be trying to fight you every second.
So this again makes me, and this is very personal. Men out there, please. If you have some crazy idea that you want to do something adventurous and silly, do it by yourself. Do your family a favor.
Okay, listen.
Leave them behind.
I'm crossing the streams, but we all say, "Oh, Stede Bonnet abandoned his kids." Well, you know what? He didn't drag them on a ship. Now did he?
Yes.
He dragged 3 girls out of the middle of a desert. Now did he?
Please leave your family behind when you're doing all
Leave
these
them behind.
crazy things. Trust me, they'll be better off.
They're better off without you.
Leave them. Do not move them to a hole under a rock. Please.
Send them some money. Live under the rock.
Come visit.
Send them some money. Perfect situation, right? They'll probably be blessed to not have you, and they'll be, grateful for the money. So, but Belle, this seems personal.
It's very personal. Same thing. Gentlemen, if you decide to move to another country, please do it by yourself. Do not take your whole family with you. Just
your father moved to another country and took you and his family.
This one.
And now look where Belle is, Texas.
Texas, exactly. See what happened to me? So yes, please.
Oh, wow.
Please go have your midlife crisis by yourself. Please.
Far away from your family who doesn't really want any part of it. Thank you. So it should be noted that 1947 is the same year as the Roswell incident. So did Frank hear about Roswell and then be like...
No, George. Frank is dead.
George, sorry. Let me take that back. Did George hear about Roswell and then be like... I know what I want to do with my
I got to
life.
get me a piece of that.
I want to go out into the desert and I want to see a UFO crash. And then I want to be there when a UFO crashes so I can see the aliens. And I think that it's not a coincidence that he moved out there the same year as Roswell.
I agree.
Okay. So while he's out there, George becomes friends with Charlie Reach, who, and I'm going to circle back to last week's episode, if you guys listened to it. Charlie Reach was the deputy sheriff and member of the posse who was wounded by Willie Boy in that final day before Willie Boy allegedly died by suicide in 1909. Isn't that like a kooky coincidence that this story ties back to last week's story? I didn't plan it that way. I was just like, wow, that's fun. Charlie was born June 29th, 1870. And so I think that makes him a Cancer. Right? Yeah, Cancer.
Oh, no, Leo.
June 29th.
Oh, June. You're right.
Yeah.
Cancer.
And Charlie had been at Giant Rock since 1887 when, according to George Van Tassel's A Brief History of Giant Rock, everyone living there at the time were Indians. Charles' homestead included the area where the Integratron, which we're going to get into, now stands, as well as the several acres around it. And you can read George's full essay about this in the show notes. But this part's really interesting. According to the Indians, this was an Indian holy ground where the North and South tribes met annually. The chiefs held their seances and meetings close by the Big Rock, which they called the Great Stone, because to them it symbolized the Great Spirit, as it was the largest single object in the area. Today, it is still known as the largest single boulder in the world. The Indians assembled for their meetings here for up to 3 days at a time. During their meetings, none of the tribesmen were allowed close by, as this was just for the chiefs and the VIPs of the tribe, like how he calls them VIPs. The rest of the people in the tribe had to camp a mile or so away, so they couldn't listen in on what was going on. And George said, I had the honor of being able to speak to the son of an Indian chief. This man was 10 years old when his father put a mark on the giant rock on the north side. The Indians called this mark the sign of the scorpion. To the Indians' understanding, this means a good place. Also, whenever an Indian chief put a sign, no other Indian was allowed to put other signs, this being the reason for only the one sign on the big rock. This is not true anymore. Now there's graffiti all over the rock because people are terrible. Whenever one finds an area where there are numerous Indian hieroglyphs on the rocks. This is an area where the Indian children have been practicing the art, which is cute and which is also, but you guys, graffiti on buildings, graffiti on sidewalks, graffiti on walls. Don't graffiti on
nature.
Rocks.
Yeah.
Please don't do that.
Not on nature. Do it on not nature.
Yes. This is very snake oil salesman attached for sure. Not sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if it's been proven that rock in fact had any kind of significance to Native Americans. If it did, I'm sure they were thrilled to have a bunch of white people move under it. I'm sure it was fantastic.
Yeah.
Just have one of those.
Just dig it out and make it a home.
Yes, we're not using it for anything. But it has that area like ancient wise men met around this rock, and they were thrilled to welcome me into their secrets.
To show me the sign of the scorpion. I know, for those at home, as Carly's reading this, Belle and I were literally rolling our eyes into the backs of our skulls.
We're about to have some damage to the nerves there. Yeah.
So I don't know if George is the most reliable narrator, but we'll take it.
Yeah. So George, while he's living there, expands the airfield, building a store and a gas station in addition to the airport, and builds a small cafe called the Come On Inn.
Okay, that's very cute. I really like that.
I'm just picturing a different spelling of that and laughing my head off over here.
Yeah. Well, I knew that's what you were thinking. I didn't have to question that.
So this inn is popular for his wife's Eva's hamburgers and spiced apple pies. Allegedly, Howard Hughes flies in once a week to enjoy the apple pies.
Sure.
Whether we can trust that or
all right, fine.
Or that's Oh, we don't know if that's true, but it sounds like something George would say. Now let's get into George's UFO life. He begins hosting Friday night meditation sessions in the home under the rock.
In the 400 square foot home?
Yes.
All right.
The home where his wife and 3 daughters and himself live. He's having random people come for group meditation sessions.
Okay.
And part of me is thinking like, okay, but this is also the place where his friend died.
Right.
So I'm like, are you communicating with aliens, which is what he and his friends say that they're doing, or are you communicating with the ghost of your dead friend?
Or both.
Or both, right?
Or are you hallucinating because you're stuck like sardines in a place under the earth?
Right.
I mean, it's all of these things. More than one thing.
Is there a high amount of carbon dioxide underneath the rock because you have so many people living in
one window
that has one window? And are you, hallucinating? But apparently, he is claiming to have telepathic communication with compassionate Venusian extraterrestrials. Then, one night at about 2 a.m. in the morning, on October 24th, 1953, according to George, a spacecraft lands at his airstrip. He says he didn't see the ship land. A man working on the ranch, who would become his son-in-law, saw it come down, and another man on the airport heard it. George was sleeping on a bed outside since it was hot and it was summertime, and I'm going to let George himself explain the rest.
I didn't see the ship land. One of my son-in-laws, that wasn't my son-in-law at that time, saw it come down. Another man on the airport heard it, and he wasn't where he could see it. And the man got off of the ship and approached me before I even knew there was a ship down.
Where were you then? What time of day or night was it?
It was 2 o'clock in the morning and approximately a full moon, which is like daylight on the desert.
Were you walking about outside or what?
No, I was sound asleep when he awakened me.
This man awakened you?
Well, something awakened me.
So you got up out of your bed?
I got out of my bed and went aboard the ship at his request.
This man, in what language did he converse with you?
He talked to me in the best English equivalent to Ronald Coleman.
And he met you there and he said, what did he say, come with me to my ship or what?
No, he said, I asked him what he wanted because we have a lot of people come in stuck in the sand and broken axles and whatnot. And I asked him what he wanted, and he said, my name is Solganda, and I would be pleased to show you our craft.
Solganda?
Solganda.
Was the craft visible to you at this time?
It was. When he stated this, I saw beyond him the ship, which I hadn't seen before.
What did you see?
bell-shaped type of anti-gravity ship that they operate as a scout ship out of their big carriers.
How big?
This was 36 feet in diameter and 19 feet high.
And where was it? On the ground?
No, it was hovering 10 feet off the ground.
And how did you go into this ship?
I walked with him to a spot underneath it, and an anti-gravity beam took me up through a hole in the bottom of it.
You're telling me at 2 o'clock in the morning in Giant Rock Airport, you walked underneath this hovering ship, and whammo, you went up
No,
inside.
you didn't go whammo. You went just about as slow as a local elevator run.
And when you got off the anti-gravity elevator, what did it look like?
I was inside of a ship about 18 feet in diameter and roughly 10 feet high to the domed ceiling, and there were 3 men on the ship, besides the one that had got off and invited me aboard.
You keep calling them man. What do you mean man?
Well,
Little green man?
they were about 5'6". They came about to my eyebrows, and they could have walked in our clothes down any of our streets, and we wouldn't have paid any attention to them.
And did you bring any proof off that ship? Were you alone in the ship?
I was alone with the 3 men until the other fellow came up behind me, and then the 4 of them were aboard.
Were there any other earthly eyewitnesses to this?
Nothing, only outside of the ship,
And these people stayed outside?
on the airport.
And did you go anywhere in this ship?
Not to my knowledge. When I got off, it was the same place it was when I got on.
What do you mean, not to your knowledge? Had the door closed when you went in or something?
I don't know, because it was below the deck.
And did these people tell you where they came from?
They didn't say where they came from, but I've been in the air game since 1927, and their instruments were unlike anything I'd ever seen before.
Well, don't give me technicalities. What was different?
The difference was that we used dial instruments, and they used vertical instruments, like fluorescent tubes with marks on them.
What color were these people?
The instruments were marked in symbols similar to hieroglyphics. They were not in any language or number system we use on the Earth.
What color were these people?
They looked like they were white people with a good, healthy tan.
Did they give you any indication of how old they were, or what they ate, or where they came from at all?
After we got off the ship, the man who invited me aboard, who didn't look a day over 28 years of age, told me that he was over 700 years of age in our time.
Oh, come off it, George.
That's right.
Was this the guy who gave you the formula for the time machine?
That's the man.
And what form did the formula take? Did he implant it in your mind by telepathy, or did he give you something written in
He
English?
spoke it to me verbally.
And you remembered this?
There's nothing to it to remember.
Will you tell me now? The
Yeah.
formula for a time machine.
F equals 1 over T.
F equals 1 over T.
F being frequency and T being time.
And this enables me to go back to the time of Caesar's armies conquering Britain.
Well, it would enable a mathematician to work this out, yes.
And why hasn't this been acclaimed like Einstein's E equals MC squared?
Well, why hasn't the fact that the United States government's been flying anti-gravity ships since 1956 been acclaimed? Or the fact that there's a crater on the moon with a base in it since 1954, we've known this.
All right, but let's get, first of all, the U.S. Why haven't the FBI clapped you incommunicado for breaking secrets that they want to keep secret in the United States?
Well, possibly because they know this information's going to get out eventually anyway, and what I say won't make any difference.
D over 28.
Okay, so we probably have a lot to say about this.
Yeah.
I just first have to note, I found the way that he speaks, and maybe this is because we've been so programmed by the patriarchy to accept people with deep voices who speak with authority to be, he seems convincing. So you're like, this seems like a guy who knows what he's talking about.
Yes.
What's your reaction?
Gravitas is the
Yeah, much gravitas. Although to be fair, the interviewer with the Scottish accent was also really rivaling his energy. It was a great, between the two of them, it was great. I enjoyed that.
I'm just so mad because as someone who speaks whatever with vocal fry and a Southern California accent that sometimes goes up at the end, I do not speak with gravitas. Let's just say that. And I almost, even when I'm telling the truth, I always feel like, you don't believe me. You know what I mean? Why can't I just inject whatever is going on with his voice into my own voice and presence so that I can say whatever shit I want and people go, oh, yeah, he seems like he knows what he's talking about.
Yeah. All right. So for all of us, next time we're doing a big, important speech, channel George Van Tassel talking so confidently about the UFO that popped by his house to let him come take a look around.
I mean, even his family was always like, he seems to know what he's talking about.
He's also like a mini, you know how like a family can be a cult?
Yeah.
I feel like he's like a mini cult leader because he brought them out to the desert where they don't have connection with other people. And his poor daughter, one of them, had to marry some random guy that was out there because there's no one else for her to marry.
Who else are going to marry?
Okay, so he speaks with gravitas about the situation. So there's that.
I would love to start with the name of the alien. Saganda was very good. That hit just right for me.
Yeah.
That is so funny.
He was pretty bright at that. Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah. I like it. I like that it's a gender neutral name, but he's very clear they were men.
Yeah. And soul, like it means sun, Ganda, like Uganda. Yeah. I don't know. It sounds exotic.
It's exactly. It sounds exotic.
Yes.
And then they had a healthy tan, but they
were white.
They were white with a healthy tan. I was like, what does that mean?
Exactly. People from outer space who speak English in a very good English accent.
Oh, and he said Ronald Coleman, who was a film actor who was known. He was actually the first guy to get his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. He was known for his very pleasant speaking voice, which was a little bit British.
Well, standard American until like the 60s or 70s had that little bit of a British, like it had to have those undertones for you to be speaking in standard somewhat American. Yeah.
Somewhat transatlantic accent situation. And then he gets brought up on the anti-gravity beam.
And I love the fact, by the way, that the interviewer that goes, like he didn't know how to pronounce either of those words. Like he was struggling with this new word that he was given. It was very funny.
Oh, I forgot when they said in vamo, I was like, what slang is that? Are you trying to say vamos, but you're doing it wrong? Like, what's happening? Vamo, you were up in the space.
I'm not up on my 50s slang, but yeah, I was laughing.
That was a good one. I'm going to start incorporating that to my daily conversations.
He is so specific. He's like, there's 3 aliens there. And then when he's asked about it, he said, well, and then a 4th one came in behind me.
And he said that with so much like when the Scottish man asked him, he was like, oh, so how many were there? There were 3. I thought there were 4. Well, yeah, the one behind me. Duh. Like the way he said it.
So definitely a practice story. Definitely, he wasn't going to get caught up in the details kind of thing. Like nobody was going to go back. You just said a second ago that it was so many. And now you said different. So he obviously rehearsed. He knew what he was talking about. Very specific dimensions to everything he talked about. Not kind of, it was 19 feet by, very specific.
Which is weird, right? Why does he say it's 36 feet in diameter and 19 feet high?
Well, because he's been in airplanes since 1927 or whatever he said. So obviously he can just, judge the height of
the exact footage of things with his vision.
His eye.
That's what all aerospace people can do.
Of course, that's the first thing you have to prove that you can do. I think that's another confident man, which interesting, confidence man, meaning con artist. When you go, I know exactly, like I can measure things with my eyes. I can tell you how much things weigh by just like touching them because that's how accurate I am. And if they say with not conviction, nobody goes, well, let me pull out, measuring device. They go, yes, of course, that's 19 feet. Yeah.
I mean, I think the lesson here is we can watch this guy and we can be like, he is so convincing. We know he's full of bullshit. But this is how men who speak with conviction get people to believe them. What I'm saying, even like things that are everyday things, they can convince you of. Like, yeah, tariffs are going to solve our problems.
Cult leaders, politicians, religious faith. I mean, basically, yeah. If you can speak with confidence, it goes a very long way.
I think I would be more likely to believe his story if it came from one of his daughters or even his wife.
Yeah.
I would believe that more. I think, and because we're looking at it, obviously, it's our 2025 eyes.
Yeah.
But it's hard to take it seriously, even though I know there's some freaky shit going on in that part of California. I know that. However, because of this man, I'm like, you're not coming across very genuine right now. It's hard to believe your story.
But you can see how a 1950s audience would believe him.
It's definitely turned around on that side, where there's a very healthy skepticism of anybody who sounds very like that person. You go, okay, we've been lied to so many times by people like you. We've seen, from certain people, not everybody.
There's a healthy skepticism amongst people like us, people who are quote unquote woke, but there are a lot of boomers, let's just say it, who would listen to a man who has a deep voice and who speaks very convincingly and go, oh yeah, I've been programmed throughout the last 70 decades to believe men who sound like this. And so because he is speaking with such authority, I am going to believe him.
Yep.
And even people in, like, let's say, less urban areas, more red state type areas, have also been convinced by their pastors and by their fathers and by the male figures in their lives.
Yep.
To trust authoritative men who speak with deep voices. And so I could see how even people today could believe this.
Oh, absolutely.
A guy like this.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Just look at QAnon. He's like an ideal QAnon type of cult leader. So the entire incident, he says, lasted 20 minutes. And a lot of the telepathic communication is warning humans about the dangers of atomic weapons.
Well, we all agree there. At least there's that.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a concern. He details a lot of these telepathic communications in his book, I Rode a Flying Saucer.
There we go.
That's what that got me. That got me right in the funny spot. I Rode a Flying Saucer is a very good name for this book.
Here's the thing, though. I downloaded this book and I read it, and it doesn't talk about riding in a flying saucer. Like,
even better.
A majority of the book, the first part of it's very disjointed. It's like a Pisces wrote it.
He's a speaker, not a writer. He's a Pisces man.
Yeah, like the first two chapters are like trying to convince the reader that what he's saying is true. And I know it's going to sound crazy, but blah, blah, blah. And he's very, trying really hard to convince the reader. And then it goes into these telepathic communiques, I guess you could say, with these different creatures who telepathically communicate with him, but it never actually talks about riding on the flying saucer. That's why I downloaded the book. That's why I wanted to read it. So I was disappointed.
Oh, George, you wild animal that
She got you with the hook. Clickbait. It's always been around, people. Before clicking was a thing.
Yeah, clickbait. It's clickbait.
Yeah. He got that catchy title. Mm-hmm. Here's 5 things you need to know about your flying saucer ride. 1.
It's 19 feet by 20 feet.
Precisely. I was there for exactly 20 minutes, not a second more, not a second less.
Healthy tan.
3. There are going to be 4 men. 1 will come up behind you.
Me and 4 healthy tanned white men had a great time in a flying saucer. Saying.
Okay, so there's this PBS SoCal article on George Van Tassel, and they do quote from his book, I Rode a Flying Saucer, and they do make connections to things that he talks about in his telepathic communiques with things that actually happened, and giving a little validity to maybe he did predict some things. On April 19th, 1952, a being named Curl says, due to inaccurate calculations, many of your fellow beings will suffer prolonged illness from an experiment to be conducted next week. This folly in the use of atomic power for destruction will rebound upon the users. Indeed, the U.S. government detonated 8 free airdrop atomic weapons between April 1st and June 5th, 1952, at the Nevada Proving Ground as part of Operation Tumbler Snapper, which caused dramatically higher civilian radiation exposures of radioiodine 131 in downwind regions. George says it caused pernicious anemia in people. That same year, George Adamski, who wrote the 1953 book Flying Saucers Have Landed, claims to have encountered a friendly Venusian named Orthon near Desert Center, California, on November 20th, 1952, 2 months after George's first contact. He describes Orthon as a fashionably attired extraterrestrial sporting a belted jumpsuit with tanned Nordic features and shoulder-length blonde hair, who could also communicate telepathically reactions.
All right, so a couple of things. One thing is, by the way, just a random side story. From if I remember correctly, John Wayne was one of the people that was irradiated by these tests that they were doing, and he ended up dying an early death because of it. He was a bastard, so it's a good thing it happened. Less years for him to be disgusting, but interesting side story. But we go back to the looking of the aliens, and we go back to this. There's a reason why Nazis were into aliens, because it's this idea of these very handsome Nordic aliens.
Yeah.
And it persists to this day that they are mingling with humanity to make us better theory of aliens. So it's been around
interesting
for a
that they're
while.
white.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, no, because that's what makes people better, of course. You know, the white people are better. We all know this. So it's always very handsome, very Nordic. They always get described as beautiful, white, blonde, very, very, nothing racist going on there. Just the facts, ma'am.
Now, a big part of these 1950s UFO contactee stories is that there's a lot of Christianity involved. Like, the aliens are described as they're Christians. I'm someone who I do believe like in aliens and UFOs, and
I don't think they're going to come from Venus.
So for the people who we are believers, I'm a believer too, and you look at it and you go, okay, I believe that they're good. I believe they're coming for the good. I don't think that they're coming here to destroy us or to do anything bad or ugly. What characteristics should I give these people? So they go, the good characteristics, of course, they're white, they're blonde, they're Christians.
Yeah, they're Christians.
And there you go. See, they're here for our good.
Also,
they're warning us.
Jumpsuit,
Very nice.
Fashionably
dressed.
An impression. Well, they're athletic, you know, which is obviously next to godliness. Being healthy, being fit is to be godly. So yeah, all those things. But I would like to propose right now that come this Halloween that the three of us do a group costume. One of us is Orthon, one of us is Carol, and one of us is Sulganda.
I love it. I'll do my best to keep my healthy tan through October.
Right. Yes. Well, and you better I know you go to the gym, better keep that up so you look good in your jumpsuit.
Right.
Okay, let's go do a brief look at other 1950s UFO contactees. The 1950s were a big time for UFO contactees. Around this time, Truman Bethurum, which sounds like a fake name, but I really think that is actually his name. He's a Bethurum, Truman Bethurum. He's a day laborer who has a side hustle as a fortune teller and spiritual advisor. And he wrote his own book in 1954 called Aboard a Flying Saucer, claiming that he had been invited aboard a spacecraft. The captain was a humanoid female named Aura Raines, who was visiting from the planet Clarion, and the planet Clarion is an unknown planet that cannot be viewed by humans because it's directly behind the sun, and it stays there. And they had 10 meetings, And Truman learned that Clarion was a utopian society free of war, divorce, and taxes.
Throwing the divorce in there is wild.
Yes. That is not at all a timely 1950s reference where all of a sudden women could leave their shitty husbands behind.
Well,
Yeah, I was like, free of war and taxes. Okay, I'm divorced.
no, wait till you hear the next bit. Okay, so people on this planet lived to be nearly 1,000 years old, and they were good Christians. Truman's obsession with aura led to the failure of his second marriage. Can we understand
Nothing to be
now
seen here, people. Nothing to be seen here.
why he included divorce in the list of things that his utopian society was free of? He'd already been divorced once, and it was probably a traumatic time for him.
And so he thought, I know how I'll prevent a second divorce. I'll get obsessed with an alien woman lover.
And I bet, you know what I bet this guy did? I bet he was like, he came up with aura, right? And I bet he was constantly nagging his wife, like, if she maybe would question him. And he would be like, aura accepts me for who I am.
And you wouldn't be allowed to do this.
Yeah, you wouldn't be allowed to question me. Whenever they would get into arguments.
Why don't you live behind the sun, Beth?
Oh my God.
That's lovely.
So
I also go ahead. I also would like to just gather how many books have titles that have to do with flying saucers, and see if we can fill in any gaps for places the flying saucer. So beyond the flying saucer, below the flying saucer, next to it, behind the flying saucer, in front of the flying saucer, in the general zip code of the flying saucer. We can just keep going. It'd be great.
Yeah, we should definitely start writing a series of books about where we are in relation to the flying saucer.
Visiting the flying saucer, just here for a bit.
Adjacent flying saucer. Missing my flying saucer.
Yes.
So after Truman's second divorce, he moves to Landers after attending one of George Van Tassel's giant rock interplanetary spacecraft conventions, which were attracting all of the UFO enthusiasts who gathered to share UFO sightings and abduction stories. During the peak of its popularity, the Giant Rock Interplanetary Spacecraft Convention attracts 1,200 to 11,000 attendees. At one point, George announces that he plans to run for president in 1960 using the UFO convention as his campaign launch. Okay, this is how I feel though when I get more than 10 likes on a hit tweet.
This is my time. I could run for president. This is it.
This is it. The people like my messages.
I'm a man of the people, obviously. Yeah, I mean, honestly, his biggest hurdle is the fact that he can't name anything worth a damn. So if he could just get that figured out, he would have had a real shot. He
has good names for things. I bet he'd rename all the states. California would be like Calagonda, but then it would be next to Calagonda would be the name of the next state, right? And then Calagonda 2 over is the name of the state after that. And check this out. Here is a Life magazine article of photos from his spacecraft convention. I'll put it in the show notes. The title of it is called Visit the 1957 Flying Saucer Convention, photographed by Ralph Crane. One, it's just got such a Wes Anderson vibe, which is kind of delightful. All the 1950s cars and Volkswagen buses and little Airstream trailers there. Everyone's in their 1950s clothes.
It looks like a good craft fair. Someone's selling shirts, someone's selling art, someone's wearing a bib that says UFO songs, but I can't quite figure out what that's about. It looks really fun, actually. Ooh, look at those earrings. Those are cute.
Honestly, it does look like a fun time. I would probably go.
Ties with flying saucers on them. That's 1950s
ties with little flying saucers painted on them, like the skinny ties. That's so cute.
I mean, for somebody who goes to conventions, this feels like a great time.
Yeah. And so then we get to the Integratron. Inspired by the instructions the extraterrestrials telepathically conveyed to him, George begins building the Integratron, a machine that could rejuvenate human cells using a natural energy found in the atmosphere. It's a 16-sided domed wooden structure, 38 feet high and 55 feet in diameter, joined without metal nails or fasteners. It's all white with a rim around it, and it kind of looks like a spaceship. It's made out of Douglas fir beam glued together, and it's designed to be an electrostatic generator. And he even plans to use it for time travel. The generating core is made out of copper wire. And had it been finished and put into operation, people would have walked through the building wearing white outfits. Then the charges distributed over a wide range of frequencies would affect every cell in somebody's body. And
I have so many thoughts. I can't even get them all out. First of all white baptism. We're back to Christianity.
Yeah.
Second thing, even though he's not in LA, it's still LA. Oh, you want to be younger? Come to my Integratron. You don't have Botox yet? That's okay. Just come here. We'll get rid of your wrinkles. But also, maybe send you back in time. Who can say? I can't.
Up until the time bit, it could have been a brochure for cryotherapy. Like, absolute.
100%.
100%. Yes.
I'm honestly like the red laser treatment, like the red laser mask, same genre of bullshit that people sell.
Yeah.
But I think we should hear from George. So let's have a listen, and then we'll provide our commentary.
Let's talk about this picture. This is the time machine.
This is a picture of the machine we're building down there. This structure is actually up. We're working now on the parts on the equipment that operate it. This rim around here has armatures 57 feet in diameter, which will be better than 4 times bigger than the biggest armatures ever made before.
Are you making a lucrative living out of traveling around the world, evangelizing for flying, around the continent, evangelizing for flying saucers?
No, Jack, I'm on a vacation to rest my wife because she's been 2 years in a 40-seat restaurant without a rest, more than anything else, and I enjoy these particular things as a sideline. I make my living on the airport, and this research is something that I've got more money into than anybody else and more contribution to it. 5 years of intensive research without any pay. We donated 10 acres of land with a well worth $23,000, and we formed this corporation for the purpose of building up and investigating this basic material.
All right, now how long is it going to take you to get your time machine in operation?
Well,
I mean, it all sounds so crazy. You must admit that I believe there are some odd things, George, but I find it hard to credit because I wasn't there myself, your own experiences.
Well, it took them around 8 years to grind the mirror for the 200-inch telescope, and the first cyclotron was something like 11 years in the progress of building.
But that cost millions, George. You haven't got millions, billions it cost.
No, we don't have the overhead, the drafts from the engineers and people sitting around the payroll. All of our effort on this is voluntary by many people in technical fields that contribute their effort to the project.
They all believe in flying saucers.
They all believe in flying saucers.
And you obviously believe totally in flying saucers.
Yeah.
Because of that one, does your wife believe in flying saucers?
Well, I don't know very many people that don't. It's as obvious as believing in heaven or afterlife or anything else. You have certain things you believe in life. You believe there's air we breathe, yet you don't see it. We fly airplanes on it. And this is an intangible. We can measure it.
But why should these people come down, from outer space? Why don't they land in the White House or in Kremlin Square in Moscow and say, hey, listen to us, we can tell you a few things. We're 700 years old. We can travel through space. We're not concerned with time differentials.
Well, probably they're not concerned with giving us too much of their information because we'd only use it in our battle to destroy each other here.
Thoughts?
My favorite part was that this will be the biggest whatever that's been constructed. And I'm going,
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Lots of self-aggrandizing there.
And it'd be interesting, as soon as he's asked about the money that he's getting, he immediately diverts that they're on vacation. His wife was working in a 40-seat restaurant. He's not answering the question, which is a tactic that liars use. They don't answer the question, they divert, and they talk about something else that's going to elicit emotion.
I'm sure he made no money from those conventions. I'm sure those, somehow he managed to lose money from hundreds of people coming. And
well, according to George's half-sister, he gets huge donations. She says that she and the family, though, respected George's alien communication stories. It was so authentic in the way he would tell it, she says, which it sounds like his family was his birth family and his siblings growing up were very enabling of him. And I think because he had so much confidence, his family that got stuck with him, probably just, in 1950s, you really don't have a lot of choice other than to follow the father figure / husband figure in the family system.
Yeah.
Yep. So George writes many books. He continues holding UFO conventions where the Integratron is the focal point. In 1958, George launches the Ministry of Universal Wisdom, and his philosophy is described in the PBS SoCal article that I've linked in the show notes as theosophy and spiritualism with hints of Scientology, Mormonism, and Christian revisionist ufology.
I called it. I said, that's real cult leader vibes, and I was right.
Yeah.
And it once again highlights how easy it is to start a church in the United States. So again, people with our other interests crossing the streams. We can be calypsish by the summer, is all I'm saying.
Yeah, we could be.
100%. I'm so in. We need to start a cult, a calypsis cult. Calypsish cult. I'm in. Let's do it. Okay. We'll talk offline.
Your dog is so excited.
She's very happy about this. She also wants to be calypsish. Sorry.
George claims to have appeared in over 409 radio and TV shows and given 297 lectures. He's so precise with his numbers.
Not one singular speech more than 297. I swear it.
The Integratron takes a really long time to build. He started it in 1953. And by 1978, it's 90% complete, but George never gets a chance to take it on a test drive because he dies suddenly and unexpectedly. According to his half-sister, family members have never been satisfied with the apparent heart attack explanation that was given for her brother's death. This excerpt is from the Ashtabula, Ohio Star Beacon, June 20th, 1998. And it says, on the day he died, which was February 9th, 1978, he was in Pasadena, California, preparing for a television show interview. His sister said that he died in his hotel room in the company of his second wife. His first had died from cancer. His death came as a surprise to all because George was a healthy individual and he suffered no warning signs of an attack. Some people believe George was getting too close to proving groundbreaking science and he had to be silenced. An Akron, Ohio author says George suddenly and mysteriously died when he should have been at his zenith. George's sister is suspicious of his second wife, and this Akron author believes that she may have been working for a group determined to silence him. We think he was done away with, the sister says. She had him cremated, she as in the wife. The wife had him cremated even before the daughters had been notified that he had died. She adds that George's second wife was a chiropractor and would have had access to medical means of inducing death. Okay, for a quick sidebar. Does anyone know a chiropractor?
I was going to say, this makes me very scared of chiropractors all of a sudden. I've only been a couple of times, but if they have access to things that could kill me, I need to.
They don't. They do not. That is not what a chiropractor does. First of all, I'm so sorry. I'm going to say something very controversial. It's the opinion of just me and not the podcast. All chiropractors are charlatans. I'm saying it now. I'm sorry. It's just me, not the podcast. Second of all, even the quote unquote best one does not, they don't have all these things. They're not injecting people to give them heart attacks. It's not how that works. Not how any of that works.
Short of when they do that neck thing, they go a little too far and maybe like, yes. Other than that, absolute madness.
Do chiropractors have access to medications? Do they know special tricks to like press on a certain nerve and make someone's heart stop beating?
Man, I've not been to maybe that was now I'm a little afraid of going to a chiropractor, but no, this is crazy.
If you're listening and you know anything about what chiropractors can do to kill you, let us know.
Please.
But don't tell me because I won't believe you because I don't believe in chiropractors.
Yeah. The sister says that George's second wife had been married twice before, and both of those husbands died in strange circumstances. To be a wife whose 3 husbands have died mysteriously.
Right?
That's like the dream.
There is nothing worse for a woman than having her husband die, because then she's officially a witch, a murderer, a Black Widow. So
I mean, and the thing is, I love a Black Widow. I would love to believe that she killed this man. That would be great. But I do not know how you would, convincingly have his cause of death be a heart attack and do it any other unnatural way. Like I just don't know how that's possible. But again, I haven't murdered anyone yet. Maybe I will.
So also me as a not a big fan of especially 1970s U.S. government. Do I believe that they could have gotten him killed because he knew? Sure. Do I think this man actually knew anything that would have made him a danger? Absolutely not. Also, heart attacks.
Both things can be true. It could be possible, but did he know anything? Almost certainly not.
Also, heart attacks are known for having. It's coming, right? We all know about heart attacks. You get months and months of symptoms before you drop dead of one. That's how they work. That's why people don't worry. You have plenty of time to go to the doctor before you actually drop dead from one. So very mysterious.
Yeah, and they never happen to healthy people ever.
Never. Yeah. It's only people who are not at their zenith, people who are done with life, and that's when they go. Yeah.
Also, wait, when was he born? 19 when?
He was born in 1910. He was born in 1910.
So he's at his zenith in his 60s?
Yes.
I guess that's what I look forward to.
If he was a woman, though...
then he's anti-zenith in his 60s.
The word zenith wouldn't even be close. She was old, decrepit crone.
She was ready to go.
Right, and we're glad she's dead.
Okay. She also adds that the core and other critical components of the Integratron disappeared shortly after George's death, giving weight to the conspiracy theory. Further, another scientist who had worked on a similar project in the 1940s and 50s also suffered a sudden heart attack under unusual circumstances. Wilhelm Reich, whose Oregon accumulator had come under attack by the Food and Drug Administration, had been imprisoned as an imperious tyrant. Reich died November 1st, 1957, just 3 days before he was to be released from prison. The author believes that controlling interests saw both Reich and George as too powerful, creative, and threatening for the science of the times. I'm reading that. I'm so confused. He'd come under attack by the Food and Drug Administration.
Snake oil salesman. Snake oil salesman. That means he was selling something and saying that it was some sort of cure, some sort of disease preventing shit. And if in the 70s, the Food and Drug Administration came after you and said, you need to stop, goodness knows what that person was selling. It must have been awful.
Mm-hmm. Awful. Yeah.
Yeah.
The wording is so weird. He'd been imprisoned as an imperious tyrant. What did he go to? Please, 1990s newspapers.
70s experts.
What does that mean? What did he go to jail for?
Yeah.
Did he abuse people? Did he abuse his workers?
Or was he just so annoying to the FDA that they were like, oh my God, you're an imperious tyrant, go over here.
With no written plans for completing the Integratron, George's family abandoned the site, and the Bureau of Land Management bulldozed all their buildings except for the Integratron. And the Integratron lives on. From 1987 to 1999, the Integratron was owned by Emil Canning, who offered it for rental, tours, film locations, and recordings. Canning called it a very powerful vortex for physical and spiritual healing. And I will say, I have heard from people who've gone there and done the sound baths that they have there, and they've had great experiences.
Yeah, I mean, I could believe that. A sound bath sounds nice.
And honestly, any time that you can just lay in one place and have sound waves go over you, and if it's in an acoustically special location, I think that's even better.
If it's little to no sound pollution from other places because it's kind of isolated. Who knew that doing a relaxing thing could make you feel better?
Exactly. And in the early 2000s, the rock at Giant Rock fractured, revealing an interior of white granite, from which would have been great to see. I guess some people walking past did get to see that happen.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely think the world was ending if a giant rock starts splitting open when I walk past. Like, well, this is it. It's time.
From 2000, and it happened in the year 2000. It's from 2000 to present, the Integratron has been owned by 3 sisters. They're the Carl sisters, Joanne, Nancy, and Patty, which is very mythological. It's owned by 3 sisters, like the 3 fates.
One says the
like it's
past, the other one the present, the other one your future.
I know, right? Someone with the username Lech, whose real name is John, according to his blog on Reddit, says, the Integratron was a crazy experience. The sound bath session got me to a point where I felt like I was hurtling through space and I had to open my eyes to snap myself out of it. I've never felt anything like this before. And he wrote about it on his blog, which I will link in the show notes, but I'll read a portion of it here. He says, when you enter the dome, you grab some blankets and pillows and lie on the ground while waiting for the sound bath session to begin. I was with several friends and we were making jokes back and forth. The mood wasn't very serious. And once the sound bath began, I closed my eyes and tried to relax. It took me quite a while to disconnect and let my thoughts go because I had way too much coffee and breakfast. Lesson learned. It took me 10 minutes or so, but I was eventually able to get my mind to stop running. I began to relax and I was able to concentrate on the sounds being made by the crystal bowls. I noticed that the more I relaxed, the more my breathing slowed. I started to feel weightless, and within a few moments, I felt like I was floating on a tank of water. I maintained my awareness of my surroundings, but rather than feeling my whole body, I only felt my head. I felt like my head was suspended in zero gravity. I'm not sure if the hypnotizing frequencies being created were by the singing bowls had anything to do with the strange sensation, but it sure seemed that way at the time. I began to feel the sounds created by the crystal bowls more physically, and certain tones had what I could only describe as a physical impact. Then I started to feel what I can best describe as vertigo. My body felt like it was spinning around in fast circles. I felt like I was in a gyroscope. This sped up more and more, and to a point where I started to feel nauseous. The sensation was similar to the feeling that you get as a kid when you're in a swing and someone winds up and lets go and you spin in circles rapidly. I tried to embrace this feeling and write it out, but after 5 minutes, I decided it was too much to handle, so I opened my eyes. Surprisingly, opening my eyes didn't stop the sensation fully. Once I wiggled my arm around a little bit, I was able to snap out of it, but I still felt incredibly relaxed. After the session ended, we spent some time appreciating the internal architecture of the dome and its exceptional acoustics. My friends and I tried standing in different parts of the room and talking. It's pretty wild. You can stand across the room from someone and speak in a whisper, and they're able to hear you loud and clear. And you can see them moving their mouths to whisper, and the whisper sounds much louder than it should be. And it's coming from behind you. It's disorienting in the best way possible, which sounds really fun.
Listen, as someone that has vertigo, that sounds horrible. I already don't want to get vertigo when I get it. I'm not going to try and seek it out.
Honestly, like I've never done any drugs, but I've never done ayahuasca, but I've always been really curious about ayahuasca. And if they were to ever do like ayahuasca in the Integratron, I would sign up for that. Ayahuasca, Integratron, singing bowls. Let's go.
I'll drop you off and pick you up.
That does sound like a lot of fun. I've had some extreme meditation and breathing exercise sensations before, so some of what they're describing sounds very similar to some things I've experienced. So I'll definitely believe it. This has happened to me in different places in the world, so I don't think it has anything to do with the Integratron. But yeah, definitely good meditation will do some crazy things.
Yeah, and a building with good acoustics, it makes a difference.
For sure.
Did you ever ride on the Gravitron at like the county fair when you were a kid?
Yep.
That's like the cylinder, and then you stand on the wall.
There's a closed one and an open one. The Gravitron is the closed one.
Yeah.
It spins you very fast, so you stick to the walls.
Yeah.
It did have that
I'm
feeling.
pretty sure that's what.
Yeah. They just put them in the walls and they started spinning the instructor really fast.
Yeah, I think this is just like a stationary Gravitron, which is great. It was like my favorite ride, again, before I developed vertigo as an adult.
Yeah. There is a change.org petition to save the Integratron because I guess nearby there's like an ecodomes camping resort project. And so it means that there's like a bunch of ecodomes and then like people with RVs coming to that area. So it's no longer this serene, peaceful, no sound area. It's now that thing is going on. So if you're against that and you want to keep this pristine desert around the Integratron, sign the change.org petition, link in the show notes, and you can go to www.integratron.com to make reservations for your Integratron sound bath. And that is the story of George Van Tassel and Frank Critzer and the Giant Rock and the Integratron and a bunch of 1950s UFO guys.
Wild.
Well, my offer still stands. I'll drop you off and pick you up for your ayahuasca sound bath.
I'm in for a sound bath trip to the Integratron. Absolutely, 100%. I'm in.
I will go with you, Bel. God, you have to drive so far, though.
Oh, there's no way
Texas.
I'm driving. I'm flying.
Okay.
Yeah, unlike Carly, Bel will get on a plane. I'll pick you up, Bel. So you just come here and we'll go.
Excellent.
Cool. Well, what is the lesson to be learned from George? One, don't trust a guy with a deep voice who sounds convincing, because he's probably used to getting away with whatever the fuck he wants, and people will believe him. But just everything he says, question it 15 times.
Don't trust cops because they'll probably blow you up. We learned that from Frank.
Absolutely. Yeah.
For sure. Yep. And there is definitely, I mean, there's a reason people are called out to that part of the desert, to do these things and to build these facilities and, claim or perhaps are visited by Venusians. Although I think at this point we're like, listen, that doesn't make any sense. It'd be from further away. But it is a really magical part of the country. And if you have a chance to go out there, you should.
Yay. And this is Haunted Hollywood Hour. And if you want to help other people find this podcast, give us a rating and a review. If you have ideas for future shows, email us at hauntedhollywoodhour@gmail.com. Find us on Instagram at Haunted Hollywood Hour Podcast. I promise I'm going to eventually get that Instagram going. Just you wait. I have a vacation coming up. I will make content. And if you want to be part of the show anytime, you are welcome to be part of it. Just send me an email and we will figure something out. Until next time.
Bye.